We're going to talk about next generation leadership. Change is happening so fast, comes out of the blue sometimes, as we learned in 2020. It's happening faster and faster. So your ability as a leader to respond to that is more important than ever. A lot of times we've tried to control it. And if you haven't noticed, we can't do that. Control every bit of change. So change causes stress because our brain likes to focus on the things that it knows and likes to control things. So there's this cycle of response to the stress and to the change. And every change causes these 3 stages of human response. So as a leader, you've got to be able to quickly move through the stages to get to a place where you can continue to generate and add value, which is the value-centric approach here. So what is this cycle? I hope you'll recognize this through any change, and it maybe even be ones that you want. There's this part of us that, number one, tries to maintain the old world order. Even if you enjoy change, which some people thrive on that, what happens when things aren't changing? It's the same thing. Our brain likes to maintain that stasis that we have. And so what we typically do in this phase is we try to seek safety, security. We make sure that the things that we have are protected. And what we typically see, and I want you to recognize this not only in yourself, but in those that you lead, when they may be feeling the stress of change, is that we typically see people withdraw or hold back because what they're doing is they're assessing what they feel is happening to them because they feel like they don't have the agency over their life in that moment. And so in this phase, there's an increase in self-centeredness, which is sometimes the opposite of value-centeredness. So that's the first phase. The second one is we start to recognize this new reality and we deal with it, right? We find ways to cope with the change. We discover new avenues, actions to take, new behaviors, and we put things in place that help us manage the stress. We still feel it. Now we're just trying to, like it says there, cope or manage that. And we just try to maintain. Stay kind of where we are, or if we bent and went backwards a little bit, we try to get back to where we used to be, feeling that comfort. This phase, you can recognize it because this is where we typically find stagnation. Like I said, we just want to get back there. We want to just pause and feel like there's some semblance of control in our life. Here's often, though, where division happens because people are going to be at different phases, different stages. And sometimes internally there's this competition too. I want it to be this way again. I want it to be this way. Because of our self-centered focus in stage 1, it can cause us to feel divided and to look for what's wrong, because that's what our brain naturally does. Whenever it feels threatened, and change can be a threat, causes that stress and anxiety that then causes us to be very laser focused on what's wrong rather than looking for what's right. The final stage is where you need to get to quickly so that you can continue to add value. And this has to do with, as it says there, progress, prosperity, and productivity. This is that space for those who have the courage to move beyond stage 2. This is where you use what happened not to bounce back, but to bounce forward, to learn and adapt. And here's where you look for ways to learn quickly, and not only learn things, but to put them into practice. As it says, they're back in the game. And you, much like weightlifters or people who go running, we use resistance to become stronger, not physically stronger in this case, but mentally stronger in who we are and what we believe and the way we can build value, generate value, create that momentum that we want. This is where our focus switches from protecting ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. We all go through these phases, but from being self-centric to being value-centric. I like to put this in a little bit of a visual because I think it's about not being resilient. People have asked me, hey, will you talk about resilience? Yes, I will. But I kind of made a new word. It's about being ultra-resilient. And what does that mean? Well, typically when that stress or change happens, we bend backwards, right? Things aren't going the way they were supposed to go. They're expected to go. And so we feel this pressure. And when we don't bounce back, we become fragile or non-resilient. When we start to go from stage 1 to stage 2, we don't break anymore, but we bounce back to where we were, to that stasis. This is stage 2. What I want to talk to you about is bouncing beyond. So resilient is coming back to where you were. Ultra-resilient is about being anti-fragile. Yes, it's a book out there as well that you can read. This is about bouncing forward. And I think that's where we need to go in our next level and the next generation of our leadership, because change is going to continue to happen faster and faster. So when this process happens, when we bounce forward, we've now reset our stasis, our point of comfort to this new advanced phase. And now when we get pushed back again, we don't bounce all the way back to, we don't bend all the way back to where we were before. We just go back one more level. So we can keep doing this. That's when our leadership becomes something people want to follow. You can not only learn how to do this for yourself, but you can learn how to help your team do this as well. So rather than avoiding change, volatility, this randomness, this is disorder, and these stressors, how can you learn to love it, to see it as an adventure, right? To love the uncertainty and the risk so that you can not only do more, but become more. So people often wonder, is this ultra-resilience thing even possible? Well, yeah, your body already does it. You already do. Every time you lift weights, you're tearing your body down to build it back up. Your heart already does it. Every time you run and you push your heart rate up to aerobic, anaerobic phases, it bounces back. It becomes stronger. Well, what is it that you do for your mind and your emotions? Because your mind and emotions can do it too. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about 3 simple steps that you can take to become more value-centric and more ultra-resilient. Okay, there's a 4th bonus step too, if you're up to the challenge, but I will get to that as well. So those 3 simple steps are this. 1, know what triggers you to break or to be non-resilient or to be fragile. We're going to call that your B game, and I'll explain more about that. 2, stop looking at just your actions and dive a little deeper. And I'll show you what I mean by that as well. And then the way to bounce forward is to master your mind, master your cognitive assets, the gifts that you've already been given, the A game. You know that sometimes you show up and you're just in the zone. That's when you're in your A game, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of those. So we're going to learn how to do that. First, a little background, okay? Have you ever asked yourself, what was I thinking? Or why did I do that? Most of us have, right? And when we do, what was happening? What was going on in our head? Well, at the time we took the action or had that thought, we took it from one perspective that we have in our mind, right? Because we can view the world from many different angles and many different perspectives. You can do the same thing with your thinking. You can take a subject or a perspective and you can look at it from one angle and it looks one way. And you can look at it from another angle and it looks totally different. I umpire Little League Baseball, and hopefully I'll get to the World Series in the next couple of years, and you can see me there in Williamsport. But one of the things that happens, I just did the regionals here in Southwest in Waco, Texas earlier or actually about a month ago. And they have instant replay there. Now, through the rest of the season, we don't have instant replay, but they have instant replay there at Little League, and they have instant replay in Major League Baseball. And it's amazing how when you look at a play from one angle, you're like, oh, he's out. And you look at it from another and you're like, wait a minute, he missed that tag or whatever it happens to be. What would happen if we could take different perspectives or different angles on the things that are happening in our life, on the change that's happening? Would we feel as much stress? And by the way, how do you know which angle's the best angle to take in your thinking? Now, we can switch cameras and we can find the best angle, right? But what do you do when it's something that's occurring inside your own brain? That's what we're going to talk about. So how do you find the best angle? Well, you measure it. So using a science that's actually based in math, axiology, you can measure your thinking and your perspectives. And what it allows you to do mathematically is discover your B game, your cognitive biases. This leads to non-resilience. This leads to being fragile, because usually in a cognitive bias, you're only seeing part of the picture. And your brain, only seeing part of the picture from this perspective, believes that's the only angle that you have. And so it's hard to see more options and more opportunities when you're only looking at something from one angle. What axiology also allows us to do is reveal your cognitive assets. From this perspective and these perspectives, many of us have many cognitive assets. We can see multiple options, opportunities, ways of doing things. And when we do, it allows us to make a better choice, to become more open and aware. So that's really the first step. Step number one is to become aware of your cognitive biases. The pictures here on the screen are how we show you your cognitive biases in your report. Sometimes we overvalue a certain aspect of things and we're only looking at, say, the right side. Sometimes we are only looking at the left side. And our cognitive biases are thinking habits that we've developed over the years. So, for instance, my mom, when I was little, she told me not to talk to strangers. And so I don't tell her I do these webinars because you all are strangers to me, but listen, that habit supported me when I was 4 years old. My mom had 4 girls in 5.5 years. She's an Italian Catholic lady. So, and so when we used to go to the A&P grocery store, she used to tell all of us, don't talk to strangers. Probably no surprise to anyone listening. She ended up with 4 introverts because, well, we didn't talk to strangers. And hey, listen, that habit supported all of us when I was growing up. Why? None of us were ever kidnapped. None of us wandered off. None of us went over to a van full of puppies or anything like that, right? We all were able to stay safe. So these thinking habits that we developed over the years, they supported us at one time. So now we're taking a look at these thinking habits and we're saying, wait a minute, do they support us today? And if they do, terrific. Keep your cognitive bias. That's okay. We have one that we measure that's improving things. And some people overvalue improving things. They're a bit perfectionistic. If you're my heart surgeon, yes, I want you to have and keep that bias for the rest of your operation, at least on me. So our cognitive biases aren't bad. We're asking, hey, do they support you? What they are is limited perspectives, where beyond a certain range, it becomes cloudy or foggy. and that tend to limit our options when we're looking to make decisions and choices. Usually, if you hear something extreme, always, never, everybody, nobody, either or, those kind of choices are usually given to you from limited perspectives. And they often cause fear and self-doubt because it's an either or. And we don't like either of them. This is what leads to that anxiety and that stress that causes us to put up our walls, that leads to this non-resilience or this fragility. And even what some people call emotional robustness. You'll see that in the book Anti-Fragile. It talks about emotional robustness. And this is us just being strong and stuck in our way, and we're risk averse. We don't want to try any new things. We don't want to look at things in a new way. And these come from cognitive biases. So what do you do about it? Well, we can measure them. And then what do you do once you know? People used to always tell me, I used to be a bit of a perfectionist. I played high school and college basketball, and I would cry whenever I made a mistake. Okay, no, I wouldn't bawl. I'd still be able to play. I still made all conference teams and stuff like that. But those are the things that can sometimes mask what's really going on. So I had this fear and this perfectionistic, and I cried. I even cried in front of our CFO when I reported to him. It was this emotional fragility and this emotional robustness that got in my way. And so people used to always say, Traci, just change your attitude. I'd be like, yep, that's what I need to do. You just show me how. So for 20 years of my life, I've looked for ways to change my attitude, change how I looked at the world. And no one could ever tell me how to do that until I took an assessment that measured something that other people wouldn't have seen, but it measured how I thought about myself. And so what do you do next once you know that? Well, I have this model here. You'll see it's called the Tare Framework. And you can learn how to proactively use this, although most of us reactively feel or sense this. So this framework has to do with, we want certain results, right? And you'll notice results is partially out of that little triangle. That's intentional for you perfectionists, because some of our results don't only, we don't control all of it, but we do control some of it. And so that part that's hanging out there, that's something that goes outside of us. Everything else within this triangle is going to be things that you can control. So our results come from our actions. Most people will see that, right? And so most approaches to changing our results, to dealing with stress, has to do with the actions that you want to take. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but you usually know what you should do in order to get the results that you want or your boss wants or something else, right? So why don't you do it? Well, some people say, I don't have time. I don't, like, we'll come up with some excuses or reasons of that. I think if we boiled it down, almost every action that we don't take comes down to this reason. I don't feel like it. Like, emotion is energy in motion inside of human beings. And when we don't have the energy to take the action, when we don't feel like taking the action, we don't take the action. Our emotions are the foundation of our actions. And so there's a lot of leaders in business, especially back in the day when I was coming up through the ranks, they didn't want emotion in business. Well, emotion is the energy that takes to take action. So I had to then go to my boss to get the energy. Usually it was in terms of threats, but nonetheless, it was energy that allowed me to take action and get to the results. Now we need something that's more proactive. So what is it that causes emotions in people? Well, it's how you think. It's how you perceive what's going on around you. People can look at the same exact situation, and some people will be moved and will have the energy to take action to change that result. And other people will just complain and put posts on social media and think that that does something. So you get to choose like what level of energy you have based upon how you think about it. So common ways that we deal with change, right? We want different results. And so we tell people, oh, these are the actions that you need to take. Well, that's okay. But usually we're quickly reacting to what happened. And that comes typically from our cognitive biases, from our B game. And so we're not showing up the way we want to show up. So then what happens? Well, we're trying to put do you ever feel like your body's in one place and your heart and your head are in another? Well, this is typically what's happening. And that gap, that's supposed to be a little spring right there. We're three-dimensional human souls. And so we can't just push we can push our body ahead for a while, but there's going to be this tension, this stress. And whenever we feel that, our body goes into fight, flight, or freeze mode, and it focuses on surviving. And we can sustain that for a while, but not for a long time. What we want to do is bring our head and our heart along with our hands. That's not typically how we approach things again. So what happens when we feel that stress or that tension? Our natural reaction may be to fight. It may be to lash out. It may be to repress, which, well, that just tries to make your emotional block there a little bit smaller and usually increases the stress that we feel, right? And then the other thing that we typically do is we buffer. So we watch Netflix forever on end. And listen, this isn't a criticism of anyone who watches Netflix on end. I do too. It's a great way to, well, buffer it, relax and feel good. And those are all good things, right? It's just, why are we doing it? Distractions like alcohol, food, drugs, yes, even shopping. Amazon loves you if you buffer by shopping. So what are those things that you do? In any case, if you pick any of these, it's not really addressing the problem. It's actually causing you to be non-resilient or fragile. How do we create ultra resilience? How do we get to this next level of leadership, and how do we do it quickly? One is we don't just address the behaviors. We develop the emotional intelligence by focusing on the emotions and your intelligence, by focusing on your thoughts and your emotions, which leads to step 3. Because if we can master our thinking and we can pick the thoughts that generate the energy that we need to take the action to get to the results, it's going to be so much easier to get there, right? So if you knew how to access your cognitive assets, your A game, and you could use those to create the emotions and feelings you need to take the actions, the results are going to take care of themselves. So step number 3 is about mastering your cognitive assets. So what's a cognitive asset anyways? Well, this is a mental perspective that's aligned with axiology's mathematical hierarchy of value. I will often have people say, Traci, who put this list together? Who made this? Who says this is the way? It's math. And so a guy with a PhD in mathematics, a PhD in philosophy, and his law degree, his JD, put this together with his colleagues from a number of universities. And it's based in math. And when your personal hierarchy of value aligns with the mathematical hierarchy of value, you have a cognitive asset. When it doesn't, you have a cognitive bias. So your zone of genius, your zone of brilliance that once activated, it's going to allow you to access your best thinking. From that best thinking, you're going to be able to see more options and more opportunities and be able to generate the greatest value and become more value-centric. From your cognitive asset, you can take a step back from that emotional anxiety and stress that change sometimes causes and see more clearly, more accurately. Make better choices leads to better decisions, which, well, leads to generating value in all aspects. So here's where you and your life are today. And let's say you gonna not worry about this, not worry about changing your ways of thinking. You're just gonna keep thinking the way that you're thinking. Well, you're gonna get somewhere. It's just that you're gonna get there by default rather than by design. When you live your life unintentionally, you allow your cognitive biases or your B game to run your life. Now, if you aspire for more, and by the way, this isn't criticism. There are times in my life, like when I went through a divorce, it was by default. I just did the things I needed to do because emotionally I didn't have the energy to focus on who I aspired to be. Once I did, now I want to get there as quickly as possible. And when you learn how to use your cognitive assets, that's exactly what happens. You live a more intentional life. So people have often asked, then how do you measure people's thinking? And why haven't I heard of this before? Well, I'm going to show you. It's very simple, very straightforward. This thing called the VQ profile. VQ stands for value judgments quotient. And it measures how you think. It does not measure what you think, right? Although sometimes it's funny. So these value judgment quotients allow you to understand what's going on up here. This totally changed my life. It allowed me to shift from living by default to living by design. And this assessment, as it says there, it's for free. I want you to take it if you want to, if this is something that interests you. And here's what it is. I'm going to show you the assessment. It's not anything top secret. There's 2 worksheets to it. Should take you 10 minutes to complete. All you do is you drag and drop these things on the screen and you put what's most valuable at the top, the thing that's best at the top, and the things that are crappy, you put at the bottom. So the crappiest thing goes all the way to the bottom, right? So blowing up an airliner in flight and burning a heretic at the stake probably goes somewhere near the bottom of the list, right? So this measures how you see the world. This next one measures how you see you in the world. Same design. You put what generates the most value or what you think is the best at the top, best statement, and you put the worst at the bottom. What we're going to do is measure your cognitive biases, and we'll show you a couple of those. But what we really want to focus on is the cognitive asset you get, because this is the best way to see the world and yourself. This is where you are going to understand that you do have the power and the choice and the control over certain things in your life, and you'll be able to use that and take responsibility for bringing that into your world. So we're going to show you how to shift to your strengths, because that was the question that I asked. If you want me to change my attitude, how? I kept looking for the right answer. And then I discovered that questions are the answer. Have you ever noticed how your brain can't help but answer a question? If I asked you, what's the weather like where you're at right now? You probably looked out the window, or you probably thought about the weather. Just by asking the question, I controlled what you thought about, or at least influenced. I don't know that I controlled it. I influenced it. Questions are incredibly powerful. But if I were to just tell you, hey, look out the window and tell me what the weather is out there, you might have asked a question back towards, like, why do you want to know that? That doesn't have anything to do with anything. Questions are the things that are incredibly powerful and that can instantaneously cause your brain to shift. And so in your report that you get, you're going to get questions that you can ask yourself that allow you to be pulled into a more value-centric way of thinking rather than a self-centric way of thinking, a more ultra-resilient way of thinking rather than a fragile way of thinking. So your result is going to come with these centering questions. Your report's going to look like this. I grayed out some of that intentionally because I want you to see the blue headings. There's 3 areas of blue headings there that are going to describe your cognitive asset or your A game. And then and underneath that third blue heading are going to be your centering questions. Those are the things that we want you to focus on. We want you to practice asking yourself. Oh, and by the way, it's not in answering the questions that your brain makes the shift. None of you actually answered to me what the weather was like there. You thought about it, you contemplated it, you considered the question. That's when your brain does the shifting. So you want to be able to ask yourself these questions, because from this level of thinking, you can see more broadly, you can see more clearly and accurately, you can have more options, which is what it's all about, right? This is going to be able to lower your stress, not feel that anxiety that can come with change. You're going to be able to find that inner peace that allows you to remain calm during the storm, to have that confidence that you want to have when you're leading a group or a team of people. So how do you master your A game? Well, you measure your thinking, which I'll show you here, right? Then you use your centering questions to make that shift. And then you exercise that daily, just as you exercise your muscles to improve them, or you exercise aerobically to improve your heart. You do the same thing here. You exercise your brain, but in a very specific way. Magically, okay, and scientifically, this is going to allow you to expand your vision. You're going to be able to bounce forward or bounce beyond where you used to be. And you'll be able to get there faster, more intentionally, and more accurately, meaning you're going to be able to generate more value because of what you see. The last part I want to talk to you about is has to do with the bonus part. So step 4, this is about focusing on the long game or the infinite game. I don't know if you've read the book, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, but it's a great book, as well as Anti-Fragile. So what does that mean? Well, the short or finite game, I'm going to use baseball, of course, because, well, I umpire Little League Baseball. This is a game where we know all the players and we focus on short-term wins. If you think about public companies, they are encouraged to think short-term, quarterly returns, right? We have quarterly meetings. We want our stock prices to be at certain levels because that's how the executives get paid. But here there are known players following a fixed set of rules, and the objective is to win. Very short-sighted, right? So joy comes from comparing. Joy comes from defeating your opponent. There is nothing wrong with the short game until you recognize that there's limited returns. See, it's win-lose. And some people say, Traci, well, in our company, we go for the win-win solution. Yeah, that's awesome. But you realize there's also a lose-lose. So someone else is also lost. In the infinite game, I believe you shoot for a gain-gain solution because there's an infinite amount of value that you can create. And so everyone can gain, your team members, and everybody can gain in the process. So this has known and unknown players. The rules actually change, which sometimes stresses people out. But if you're focused on the infinite game, you know that's happening. If you're using your cognitive assets, you're able to see this stuff and be able to react to it. So the objective of the game is to keep playing it, is to keep moving forward, keep generating even more value. I love watching Elon Musk. I live here in Texas, and just south of here is where he tends to blow up all of his rockets, right? Where they take off, right? He tries to get them to land, and sometimes they blow up. He's focused on the infinite game because he doesn't mind making the mistake as long as he learns a lot from it. And that's what the infinite game is about. It's about playing to be better today than you were yesterday. It's about leading with the infinite mindset It's not about winning or losing the game. The game is just there for us to fine tune our skills, for us to get some feedback, because failure is simply feedback. It doesn't mean that you are a failure. In the infinite game, the joy comes from the advancement and from the growth as a human being, and not just seeing yourself as a human doing. So what is your long game? Because it's not just about what you want to do. It's about who you want to be and who you want to become. Because doing something to have, that's the short game. I'm going to work so that I can retire. And so you'll sometimes put up with a whole bunch of crap for a portion of your life in order to get to this promised land, right? That's all a finite game that you're playing. What if it didn't have to be that way? What if you could use your work to help you be and become who you want to be, as well as do what you want to do? See, doing to become and then have is the long game, because who you become can never be taken away from you. What you do can. Accidents happen, right? Or companies dissolve. Those kinds of things can happen. So taking a look at who you want to be, that's a big part of the whole Tare framework and the equation you see here, be times do equals have. Many of us over-focus on the do and don't focus so much on the heart and the head. So in summary, 4 keys of ultra resiliency or next generation leadership is: 1, become aware of what's getting in your way. When I realized that not talking to strangers from when I was 4 to when I was about 34 caused my self-esteem to shrink to almost nothing, it was a real eye-opener. This assessment measured that cognitive bias. I didn't enjoy who I was. I didn't even know what that was about. It was about proving myself to the world, playing a finite game rather than an infinite game. When you learn how to proactively use the power of that Tare framework to use your best thinking to create the energy you want to take the actions to get your results, your life will change. And this works in all aspects of your life. I mentioned earlier, I went through a divorce. Well, I also use this framework to intentionally focus on the next person that I want to be with. And that was incredibly powerful, because you can focus on those things and people will make fun of you. People will say, wait, what is that stuff doing on your list? Yes, I had a list. I was a project manager for 17 years. Of course I had a list. That people thought I was crazy. And then when you find someone who checks all the boxes, okay, yes, it was a checklist. It did have boxes. That part is amazing. And so when you master your cognitive assets, you're able to see, hey, what your friends are saying, they mean well, but it's not supporting who you want to be and what you want to do so you can get what you want to have. That's when you're able to really stay true to who you are and be ultra resilient, bounce forward, not just bounce back and be resilient. So use your A game to focus on the long or the infinite game. That's really the key to next generation leadership. By the way, when you learn how to do this, now, some of you are going to say, oh, so-and-so needs to see this. My boss needs to see this presentation. What? And you're going to be out there looking at other people. And I first want you to look at yourself. You need to learn how to do this, because when you experience it, you're not just telling other people what to do. You're saying, yeah, this worked, which is why I do it. So next steps. 1, get what we call your first steps report. And I think it might even have changed now to your introduction to self-leadership report. Get that. It's simple. I also include, because I want to give you even more value and more information. I realize people don't always want to talk to me, and that's okay. I have a short video course. I think the whole course might be an hour, like 4 15-minute videos. They're going to tell you how to use that report. All of it, there's no cost. It's not a hour-long sales pitch. I promise you that. There's some really awesome content in there. All you have to do is go to myvqs.com/greatpro, fill out the form that looks like that one there on the right, and get started. Like I said, it only takes 10 minutes. So that's all I have. Do we have some questions, Susan?
You mentioned axiology as based on math. How much of this comes from cognitive psychology work?
Great question. None of it. It literally is all based in axiology and the science of value. And it sounds weird to measure how you think and not have anything to do with psychology, but it really doesn't. And I can, if you reach out to me, I can give you some other like validity studies and some other information. If any of you are interested in the math behind it, like I was, just reach out to me. I'll point you in I'll send you some links to some websites that'll help you with that information as well. But there's no psychology involved in it at all. We do blend it with that. So neuro-axiology is a blend of some neuroscience with axiology that allows for personal and professional development change. So anyways, yeah. So none of it. Hopefully that answers that. What books did I reference? So I'll quickly tell you that. I referenced Anti-Fragile by, gosh, how does his name escapes me. And then I referenced The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. But if you want to, you can reach out and I can give you that information as well. But there's Anti-Fragile I think there's only one book like that as well. Black Sheep is another book written by the same author.
Thank you, Traci, very much for joining us. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. My pleasure as well.
Great. Have a great day, everyone.
Everyone.